name is Jack Pillemer, and I will be walking you through this Time to Know virtual lesson on a very special feature of the Time to Know platform, something that we call the PAL. It's the Time to Know's adaptive instruction tool for teaching and learning vocabulary. What this is, more or less, if you just look at the slide, what I hope to cover in the session. It's intended to give you a hands-on and a theoretical background to this tool. Theoretical background is necessary for you to use it effectively, for your students to use it effectively. So I'm going to start in the beginning by actually talking a little bit about it, and then we'll go on to it in practice. The PAL, which is short for Practice and Learn, is a very special feature of Time to Know lessons. First of all, it only exists in the theme units, not in the reading program and not in the spelling program. It focuses on vocabulary development only, and that's all. And it exists in all the theme units, in every one of the lessons, on all 3 grade levels. You will find a PAL component, and I'll discuss PAL components in a minute or two, in every theme lesson. So first of all, what's so special about it? It provides adaptive instruction, and adaptive instruction is instruction that adapts itself to each and every student. So students learn based on what they don't know rather than what they do know, and that indeed is very special. Each student actually has his own work based on what the computer a computer map of his knowledge of vocabulary. What vocabulary do students learn? Well, the PAL in each unit teaches pupils 36 words connected to a specific theme. For example, in the 4th grade theme called food, they will learn words like hamburger and hungry and restaurant and so on. In the 5th grade theme, they will learn professions. The theme is professions, and they will learn doctor, nurse, policeman, astronaut, as well as other words obviously connected to the unit. They are taught these words in 3 and sometimes 4 modalities. I'm going to explain this, it'll take a second. The first, they learn the word in terms of its meaning. That means they have text as well as audio. It's not reading, it's meaning. Students may know the meaning and not be able to read, and they can still do these activities and learn from them. Very good for slow readers. They learn to read the words, to decode. They learn to spell the words, and they learn to use the word in context. That is in the 6th grade only. So how does it all work? We're going to move on to the next slide, and this is perhaps the most important thing to understand, and in a minute or two we'll go to the actual platform, the DTP, and see how it all comes together. Look at the slide that you're seeing now, and you can see that in lesson 1 we have a pre-test called What Do I Know? This is a diagnostic placement test for vocabulary. It is found in lesson 1 of each theme unit, and it finds out what the students know and what they don't know about 36 words that have been chosen on this theme. So what we're going to do now is jump to the DTP, to our digital teaching program, to the content, the overall content, and see what this is all about. So I'm going to just jump quickly across there. Seem to have lost it. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this is the home page, and if we go to Tochen Inyanim, which is the content, all Time to Know content, now opens in front of you. Let's say, for example, I want to look in English, and I want to take Dalid, so I will ask to see all the materials of Dalid. I'm going to go down, let's take the unit, let's take, for example, food. I see I've got 11 lessons, if you notice here, 11 lessons on the subject of food. I click on it, and I see lesson 1, lesson 2, and lesson 3, and as I go down each lesson. If I click on any of these lessons, it will give me the content that I can see in these lessons. And if you remember, I said in the first lesson you have the first component of PAL, which is this diagnostic test. So if I go to lesson 1, you can see immediately I have an animation, which is, at this point is not the subject of our lesson, and the second thing, food, words, PAL, and what do I know about food, and this is the diagnostic test. I'm not going to look at it now in detail, but if I did want to, I would simply be able to review it here at this point and see what it is. You know what, once we're here, perhaps we will. I will jump back in a minute and look at it at another point. Let it settle. This is the introduction.
Which words do you know?
So first, I said this is a diagnostic test. It tests words, 36 words, to see whether the student knows, starting with audio and reading, and obviously an image. So here it would test the word melon, and we've got a button here which the student gets.
Melon.
So even if a student can't read, it tests his knowledge of his understanding of melon. Does he know which of these 4 pictures is a melon? If he does, even without reading, he puts it in, he puts in his answer, he chooses melon, and he goes to next. He can also choose don't know, which is fine. The computer records that he doesn't know this answer and will know to teach it to him later on. Moves on, goes on to the next word, again egg. Can't read, non-reader,
Egg.
but does have a good vocabulary, he's not forgotten about. If he makes a mistake, the computer will remember, and so on. So this diagnostic test goes on. It tests, as I said, meaning, reading, and spelling. In lesson 2, we haven't talked about it yet, so let's just jump back there. If you see here in lesson 2, you've got teaching and practice new words. Now, teaching and practice new words will always be in lesson 2, will always follow the diagnostic test. This is an acquisition activity. It teaches the students the vocabulary they don't know. The activity appears in every alternative lesson and is automatically updated to reflect the student's successes and failures in learning the vocabulary. So if you look, lesson 2, teaching and practice new words. Lesson 4, teaching and practice new words. Lesson 6, each time the student will be taught the words that he has failed to learn in the past. So if we jump back now, back to the DTP, and we go to lesson 2. If you remember, we had here lesson 1, food lesson 1, we looked at it. Now I'm going to go and look at food lesson 2, and as I promised, you see we have animation and we have time to talk, but we always have a PAL element. So here we've got food new words. I'm going to click on food new words and we'll have a look at it for a second to see how it works.
Let's read and listen.
Now here I want you to understand what every student now will get a different PAL activity. Every student will be different. It will be based on the diagnostic test that he did in lesson 1. In our case, we didn't really do anything, so it will actually start from the beginning. The first screen is always a teaching screen. Here the students are expected to
Click to learn new words.
and if they can't understand,
לחצו על סימן השאלה כדי להכיר מילים חדשות.
you have the Hebrew and the English. Here, this is absolutely important that you as teachers and that students understand the function of the screen. This screen is a teaching screen. If they don't stop here and learn the words, they will forever come back to haunt them. They have to, at this point, learn these 4 words. So I've got the word here and I don't know what it is because I made a mistake in my diagnostic test, so it's been given back to me, and I click on it. It tells me it's a melon, it tells me how it's spelt.
Egg.
I'm learning,
Milk.
I'm a student, and this has to be explained to your students. If you don't explain this to them, they think all they've got to do is click and move on, and they don't. They've got to study these 4 words, learn them, because on the next screen the computer is going to see if they remember. So let's see how it works.
Let's practice reading and listening.
So here I now have learnt the word melon. Now I'm being tested. Do I remember which word is melon? I can choose yes. I will check it. It tells me I'm doing great
You're doing great.
because I got it correct. I go on to my next word. I learnt the word egg, but I've forgotten it. I choose pizza by mistake. I check. It tells me,
Sorry, but your answer is not correct. Try again.
so I go down to try again, which allows me to unclick the X which I received, and I now can choose my correct answer. And so I go on. This is the way the students learn the 36 words that Time to Know is given for each unit. Each time, each student will get a different set of words based on their successes and their failures in doing this activity, and the successes and failures of the original diagnostic test. So now let's jump back again to the PowerPoint and look and see what the 3rd lesson has in store for us. The 3rd lesson is recycling in game form. It is called PAL Games, and it takes vocabulary items from all the previous PAL units the students have already done and re-enters them in the form of games. In other words, this is a recycling of everything that they've learnt in terms of vocabulary. If in the first part of the year they studied colors and clothes, and now they're studying food, this activity will integrate colors and clothes and food all together in the form of games to keep the vocabulary alive in their minds. So as you can obviously expect, the 3rd lesson, if I jump across to our platform and I go into lesson 3, here's lesson 3, click on it. As I promised, here we have food word games, and here we'll have games which I won't actually show now, but you get the idea. Alright, so let's just go out of this, move one step back, sorry. I'm going to now sum up and then look at some of this in slightly more detail than I've already shown it to you. The point is, this PAL component exists in all of the theme units, these PAL components. Lesson 1 is the test, the pre-test. Lesson 2 is the teaching and practice, and that's where students have to learn and move forward. Each student gets a different activity. Lesson 3 is the reintroducing of the vocabulary. Lesson 4, reteaching. Lesson 5, recycling in the form of games, and so on, all the way until the end of the unit. At the end of the unit, there's a post-test, and of course, you can imagine, we do have all of this information stored in the computer in the form of reports, so a teacher can follow where every student is. We'll look at that. Okay. Now, I'd like to go back to the area that you're familiar with, which is our home page. And from our home page, we go into planning. And in planning, I'm going to be teaching a theme called food. And in food, I've got lesson 1. And in lesson 1, as I promised, we will have a PAL element, words, PAL. It's called, here we are, it's called What Do I Know? So we know it's a test. Notice it's a 30-minute activity, or 25-minute, or 20 minutes. It's a long activity. You've got to be ready for it. Different students will be finishing at different times, because actually, ironically, the students who know the least finish first. The computer decides that it's not worth carrying on. So you have to explain this to the students, not that those who finish first know the least, but the different students are going to finish at different times, what the function of all of this is. Told you in lesson 2, if we just look at it again, we've got animation, we've got time to talk, and as I promised, lesson 2 will be another PAL element. This time it's the new words. Notice here this is now only 10 minutes, and this is really important. If you give this activity at the beginning of the lesson, it will never end. Students will just keep on going forward, which will cause frustration because they never get the sense of satisfaction of ending. So either put it at the end of the lesson or tell them to stop after 10 minutes. Lesson 3, I bet you can guess, is the recycling, the games. Words PAL here, if we click on it here, you say food, games, and so on. I think you got it. What we're now going to do is just look at the last aspects of this, is how do we follow up on this? How do I know what students know and what they don't know? So, Dafa Bait, I now go to my reports. I click on reports, and I have a special report for PAL. You can see written here, PAL, Salmilim in Hebrew, and I click on it. I'm going to just use the PowerPoint in this case to show you what a report would look like. Everything in green is what the student at this point in time has got correct. This updates itself every time the student works on the PAL. So it changes from day to day, and I can get a report. The X's show what he's got wrong. The first is the first modality, audio and text. That means he understands the meaning even if he can't read it. The second requires reading, text, and the third requires spelling. I think we've more or less come to the end, so I will just mention 2 or 3 tips or points that you should remember before we call it a day and send you off to use PAL in your classes. You must decide, if you are not teaching everything, whether you want to use this system, the PAL system, or not. There's no point in giving the diagnostic test and then never giving the new words. There's no point in it. So there has to be some sort of continuity. You have to know what you're doing, test, new words, recycling, for it to be effective. 2, nothing works very well if you don't do the diagnostic test. So don't give new words if you haven't already given the test, or don't give the games based on the PAL if you haven't given the test. It all goes together as one closed system. You don't have to do it every time, you don't have to do it all the time, but there certainly has to be a sense of continuity. I think that's about it. So I hope it's clear, and I hope you enjoy using this material, and I'm sure your students who are getting differential language vocabulary development will certainly enjoy the progress that they feel. Thank you very much, and goodbye.